The first time I saw her, I didn't even realize she was watching me. The ship's observation deck was a sterile place, all cold metal and blinking lights, but she floated there like she didn't belong, her presence bending the air around her. I had been jotting notes in my personal log, meaningless scribbles about the peculiar energy signatures of the Xarian sector, when I muttered to myself, half in awe, half in jest, "Her form's perfect. Not human, but perfect in a way I can't describe." I laughed nervously, thinking no one could hear me. After all, the deck was empty, or so I thought. The feeling hit me like a jolt of lightning when the ship's sensors suddenly blinked red, alerting me to a non-crew presence. I turned, and there she was, a being of impossible elegance, translucent in places, glowing faintly like a living aurora. Her eyes, two silver orbs that seemed to peer into my very thoughts, locked on mine. And then she smiled. I realized with a cold thrill that the words I had whispered about her had reached her. Somehow. Part 1. The Arrival. I'm Captain Jalen Rowe of the exploratory vessel Aurora's Edge. My missions often take me to the farthest reaches of known space, mapping energy anomalies and alien life forms. But nothing in the Academy prepared me for this. For her. Her name, I would later learn, is Queen Lysara of the Xarian Dominion, a race whose biology is as much energy as it is flesh. Their bodies shimmered like living prisms, with shapes and contours that defied the anatomy I had memorized in school. Yet, despite her radiance, it wasn't fear that froze me. It was curiosity, awe, and something I couldn't name, something dangerously close to desire. "Captain Rowe," she said, her voice like the resonance of a crystal chamber. "Your thoughts about my form, I have heard them." I swallowed hard. I didn't mean to offend your majesty. Offense. She tilted her head, the motion mesmerizing. "No, human. What you intended is irrelevant. What matters is that you acknowledge what others fear to see. You have insight." That insight, as she put it, was why she declared me a guest on her flagship, the Luminaris. She said it was an honor, but the way she looked at me suggested something more, a test or perhaps a trap. Either way, my orders, my sense of duty, melted away under her gaze. Part 2. The Queen's World. Stepping onto the Luminaris was like stepping into a dream. The walls pulsed with bioluminescent veins, and floors seemed to ripple underfoot, reacting to weight and intent. The air carried a faint electric tang, as if charged with thought itself. Lysara guided me through chambers I could barely comprehend. Gardens where plants sang softly, corridors that shifted subtly as if aware of my movements, pools of liquid light that reflected memories rather than faces. And always her presence followed, not as a shadow, but as a tide I could neither resist nor escape. She spoke often, sometimes of politics, sometimes of philosophy, but often disturbingly of the body. The Xarians see themselves not as separate from their forms, but as their forms, an extension of thought, of life, of identity. I tried to explain our human taboos, our discomfort with discussing the body as an object of admiration. She found this amusing. "You speak of the body as if it is shameful," she said one evening, seated atop a hovering dais that shifted with her mood. "We speak of it as revelation. You see truth where others avert their eyes. That is why I chose you." I wanted to protest. I wanted to call her wrong. But every fiber of my being betrayed me. Her words, her presence, her very essence invaded the parts of my mind I had kept locked from everyone. Part 3. The Ritual of Insight. A week into my stay, she announced what she called the Ritual of Insight. It was a test of perception, of honesty, of the human capacity to see beyond skin and flesh into the architecture of being itself. I didn't know whether to be terrified or honored. The ritual involved entering a chamber filled with luminous liquid rising to my chest. Lasar explained that the liquid would resonate with my thoughts, projecting them outward. I would see my own perceptions, my own desires made tangible. You will see how you truly perceive the body, she said, and I will see what your heart cannot hide. I stepped in. The liquid was warmer than it looked, more alive than any water I had ever felt. And then the images began, my thoughts of her, my whispered awe, the words I hadn't dared to speak aloud. I tried to withdraw, but the liquid held me gently, insistently. She appeared beside me, radiance reflected in the shimmering surface. "Do you understand now?" she asked. "Your respect, your fascination, your fear, all of it is visible to me. And yet you do not avert your eyes. You do not shy away." I realized then that my admission, my silent acknowledgement of her body, her form, had not been an offense, not in her eyes. It had been an offering. Part 4. Politics of Desire. As I spent more time on the Luminaris, I began to understand the stakes. Lasara was not just a queen. She was a pivot of civilization whose reach extended across dozens of star systems. Her attention was dangerous. To be in her favor could mean influence beyond imagining, but to offend her could mean death or worse, disappearance into the unknown recesses of the Xarian Empire. Yet she did not treat me as a subordinate. She treated me as a companion, a confidant, a witness to her existence. We walked through gardens where flowers responded to emotion. We discussed wars fought in the energy streams of space. And we even shared silences that spoke more than conversation. One evening, as I traced a finger along the edge of a crystalline structure, she said softly, "Human, there is a power in your words. You recognize what others ignore. This is why I allow you close. But do not mistake my tolerance for weakness. To be near me is to walk a blade's edge." And I realized every step I took on the Luminaris, every word I spoke, every glance I stole, was a negotiation with fate itself. Part 5. The Message Reaches Beyond. One day, a transmission arrived from my home system. My crew, unaware of my presence on Lasara's ship, had intercepted an unusual energy signature. The message was clear. Someone had accessed my logs, my private thoughts, and reacted. I realized with horror and awe that Lasara's race could, with focus, intercept not just spoken words, but the very essence of thought projected across space. I had been chosen not because of my skill with star charts or my diplomatic knowledge, but because of the words I had whispered about her body, words I thought lost in private reflection. Confronting her, I said, You heard everything. My thoughts, my most private musings." She smiled, a crescent of light. "Yes, and I found you honest. There's courage in that honesty. Most fear the truth of perception. You do not." And in that moment, I understood why she had claimed me as her guest. Not out of whim, not out of mere fascination, but because I had passed her test of insight. Part 6. The Conflict. Of course, life aboard the Luminaris was not without tension. Lasar's advisors, beings of pure logic interwoven with energy, watched me warily. My presence disrupted their equilibrium. They whispered of influence, of seduction, of human frailty. I had to navigate carefully. A wrong word, a careless glance, could provoke suspicion, even hostility. I learned to observe, to measure, to respond not only with my voice but with intention. One night, as Lasara rested in her chamber of floating lights, her advisors approached me. Human, they said in unison, voices harmonized like a choir of glass. Your fascination with her form endangers both you and the queen. You must restrain yourself, or what? I wondered. Disappearance? Exile into the void? I wasn't sure. But I knew one thing. I could not pretend. My fascination was not weakness. It was honesty. When I returned to Lasara, she regarded me silently. And in that silence, I understood she, too, had to choose whether my honesty was a threat or a boon. Part 7. Acceptance. Weeks turned into months. I learned the rhythms of the ship, the cadence of Lasara's moods, the subtle language of her body and energy, and slowly, a strange trust developed between us. You have been brave, human, she said one day as we hovered above the bioluminescent oceans of Xarian Prime. Not because you do not fear, but because you do not hide. That is why I claim you as my guest, not a prisoner, not a servant. You are witness, companion, and perhaps, if fate allows, more. Her words struck me like a solar flare. I wanted to say so much, to confess, to pledge loyalty, to reveal the depths of what I felt. But all I managed was a nod, a whisper, I am honored. And truly I was, in a galaxy of endless danger and deceit, I had been chosen not for power, not for conquest, but for truth. Part 8. The Departure. Eventually, the day came when I had to report back to the United Systems Command. Lasara escorted me to the airlock, her presence glowing brighter than any star I had ever seen. You will return, she said, but do not think this changes anything. You are mine, as much as any human can be claimed. Remember, what you see is truth, and truth endures. I stepped into the shuttle, heart heavy, mind racing. As the Aurora's edge pulled away from Xarian orbit, I knew the galaxy would never see me the same way again. I had seen the Queen, her form, her essence, and she had seen me, and that connection was unbreakable. Even now, writing these words in the cold, dark expanse of space, I feel her presence, the memory of her body, her light, her judgment. It lingers like a pulse in my veins. I am no longer just a human explorer. I am a witness, a chosen guest, and perhaps, in ways I cannot yet fathom, part of the Xarian dominion itself.